Baylor Wortham, a graduate of Baylor Law School, a prosecutor with the U.S. Attorney's Office. At the time, I was a special assistant United States attorney. When I arrived at the U.S. Attorney's Office, I was assigned a case against a man named Omar Daw. And the type of offense that it included was for the offense of felon in possession of a firearm. And so the facts of Omar's case were laid out as follows. Omar was a resident of Port Arthur, Texas, and on one particular day, a confidential informant called the Port Arthur Police Department and reported that Omar Daw was driving in a vehicle, described the make and model of the vehicle, told the officer where the vehicle would be located, and informed the officer that there was a assault rifle hidden underneath the back seat compartment of the vehicle, described the location and where it would be found. And so the officer received this information, went to the convenience store that he was told about, found Daw located there in the parking lot, found the vehicle just where the informant said it had been, and contacted Daw, asked Daw for permission to search the vehicle. Daw said, absolutely. Searched the car, looked in the back seat, and lo and behold, just where the informant had said there would be was a SKS assault rifle with obliterated serial number and a banana clip with 15 rounds of ammunition. So Daw was arrested. He had a prior felony conviction. He was charged with being a felon in possession of a firearm. So as the case had progressed, the first hearing that I had with Mr. Daw after he had been indicted was a detention hearing. And he had been appointed the federal public defender. And before the hearing had started, his attorney comes to me, the public defender, and says, well, my client wants to know who the confidential informant is. He's very adamant he wants to know who this person is. At the time, I'm a very new, young prosecutor, and I thought, of course, well, yeah, I bet he does. Wants to find out who it was that had ratted him out, and so he can take out remuneration. So we executed the informant's privilege, as the government has, and so we declined to reveal the identity of the informant at that time. Went through with a detention hearing, and ultimately Mr. Daw was ordered detained. And then a few weeks later, his attorney contacted me and said that his client wished to enter into a plea agreement, and ended up, at the end of the day, after all the sentencing calculations were done, was sentenced to 7 years in federal prison. Now, the break that came in that case actually was several years later. So the informant in Mr. Daw's case was a person by the name of Christopher Thomas. And Christopher Thomas was a individual that was actually being investigated by Port Arthur police on a separate investigation. And it really, the credit goes to an outstanding detective by the name of Paul Arvizo, who looked at the case involving a series of armed robberies of convenience stores in Port Arthur, and knew that Christopher Thomas, who had also served as the informant on that case, had a lot more involvement than just providing the facts. And so he went, all the young men that were involved in this robbery case were sentenced to very lengthy sentences. At the time of their arrest, they initially never wanted to talk with the police or talk about anyone else's involvement. So several years later, Detective Arvizo and I reapproached those young men in state prison, and then at that time they told their story, how Christopher Thomas not only was involved in the case, that he was the one that had pressured them to actually commit the robberies, provided them the firearms, told them the locations of where to rob, and then actually received a portion of the proceeds after each robbery. And then the time when they finally got caught was based upon Christopher Thomas's tip, where he had instructed them to go rob a convenience store, and then contacted Port Arthur police acting as an informant and stated that there's going to be a robbery at this date, time, and location, and this is the vehicle that's going to be involved in the robbery. And lo and behold, the vehicle shows up, they take them down, all these young men get arrested, and then later are sentenced to time in prison. So as we began investigating and talking to those young men, we realized that this CI was essentially creating crime that he was thereafter turning over to the police to try and get credit with the police. We interviewed that other young man who was arrested by Port Arthur police in the robbery. He tells his same story about Christopher Thomas's involvement, that he was directing and providing these guys with the weapons and was receiving a cut of the money. And he too also was involved on framing Omar Daw on the gun case. Described the set of facts exactly to a T as the first young man had. And so right then and there we knew that we had a problem, because I sincerely believed these young men, and I knew that I had convicted an innocent man at that point. So, there's no instruction manual on what you do when you get to this point. So, I just said, we'll go to the basics and do what I know how to do, which is get to the truth. So the very first thing I did, obviously, was call the public defender and say, hey, we got a problem. And I called the lawyer that had handled Omar's case and told him the facts that I had discovered. We subpoenaed and brought in the other individuals that had also been involved with Omar Daw's case. And what they all testified to was this set of facts. The night before Daw had been arrested, they had gone to his house and found his car, which was parked in the driveway, broke into the car, and then hid the SKS rifle in the back seat in the compartment. And so to keep the gun from being linked to them, they obliterated the serial numbers. We took the testimony, we went to the judge, with my hat in my hand, I said, Judge, I think we've convicted an innocent man. And we filed a 9-page motion for new trial. The government did, laying out all the facts and saying that the government believed this person had been wrongfully convicted. The court agreed, granted the motion for new trial, and we filed a motion to dismiss. And so when Omar was released from prison, he called me, and initially to thank me. And really, as I told him, I said, look, I owe you an apology. You shouldn't be thanking me. I mean, the system let you down. This was a circumstance where, this should have never happened, and I was apologizing to him. And his basic response is that, well, look, this case didn't happen because of something that you did, but the reason I got out was because of the work that Detective Arvizo and that you did to help clear me, and so I'm grateful for that. And really asking him, well, Omar, why didn't you ask for a trial? If you knew this gun wasn't yours, why did you, agree to plead to it? Why not put up a fight? And his response was very telling. He said, well, my defense was going to be basically somebody broke into my car the night before and planted the gun there. Who would have believed me? How believable is that? And I just assumed that, it was unfortunate circumstance, and that, this was just the reality, that I had to deal with it, and so just do whatever I could to minimize my time. And the benefit of coming from this is the learning experience of never being afraid to take a step back and look at this set of facts and question the things that are brought before you from a CI. If somebody asserts actual innocence, and even if it seems like a ludicrous story, just playing devil's advocate, give them the benefit of the doubt, and then go and take a second look or closer examination of the facts. Because when I went back and re-looked at Omar's case again, after everything that I knew, there were little things that would have tipped me off that something wasn't right. So this case happened in Port Arthur, Texas, where there's always 90.
Are your countertops and other surfaces